This is VOA News. Reporting via remote, I'm Jeff Custer. Ukrainian officials said Monday the death toll from a Russian missile strike on an apartment building in Dnipro Saturday has risen to at least 40, with rescue crews still searching the rubble for any survivors. Associated Press correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
According to the Associated Press Frontline War Crimes Project, the reported death toll on an apartment building in the southeastern Ukrainian city of Dnipro makes it the deadliest single attack on Ukrainian civilians since before the summer. Residents say the apartment tower did not house any military facilities. Meanwhile, the Institute for the Study of War, a Washington think tank, reports signs the Kremlin's taking steps to turn its Ukrainian invasion into a major conventional war after months of embarrassing military reversals. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
On social media, Dnipropetrovsk Regional Governor Valentin Reshchenko said the attack Saturday had injured 75 people and the fate of 35 others was still unknown. The missile strike took place Saturday with what Ukraine's Air Force Command said was a Kh-22 missile launched from Russia's Kursk region. Military officials said Ukrainian forces shot down 21 of 33 total missiles Russia fired that day, but that Ukraine does not have a system capable of intercepting the Kh-22. The World Economic Forum, which returns to the Swiss ski resort city of Davos this week, will focus once again on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. A heavy contingent of Ukraine's closest allies from the Baltics, Nordic countries, and Eastern Europe, along with European Union and NATO leaders, are all attending ahead of a crunch meeting in Ramstein, Germany, Friday that will focus more on sophisticated weaponry pledged to Ukraine. Russia and Belarus's joint military exercises Monday have triggered fears in Kyiv. The West and Moscow could use its ally to launch a new ground offensive. This is VOA News. The International Labor Organization has published its World Employment and Social Outlook report for 2023 and is warning the current global economic slowdown will force millions of people to accept lower quality, poorly paid jobs. Lisa Schlein reports for VOA from Geneva.
The International Labor Organization reports global unemployment will rise by 3 million for a total of 208 million this year, with similar projections for 2024. ILO Director of Work Quality, Manuela Tomei, says both the quantity and quality of jobs will deteriorate. For the first time since the 1970s, Tomei says stagflation conditions, that is, high inflation and low growth combined, are threatening productivity and labor market recovery.
The Ukrainian war, geopolitical tensions, disruption in supply chains, high inflation, the tightening of monetary policies and great uncertainty overall are all contributing to depressing the prospects for labor markets.
Lisa Schlein for VOA News, Geneva.
The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration is investigating a close call at a New York airport late Friday between a jet that was crossing a runway and another that was preparing to take off. AP correspondent Julie Walker reports.
A JFK air traffic controller can be heard on audio captured by liveatc.net, frantically telling the Delta pilot not to take off.
Delta 1943, cancel takeoff clearance.
Then relief when the close call with the American Airlines plane crossing the runway in front of it is averted.
All right, the Delta 1943.
The NTSB and FAA are investigating exactly what went wrong when the two planes came within 1,000 feet of each other. As air traffic control notes, they are going over the recordings.
Yes, we'll listen to the tapes, but you were supposed to depart runway 4 left. You're currently holding short of 31 left.
American Airlines is deferring all questions to the FAA. Julie Walker, New York.
Pakistan Monday launched its first nationwide anti-polio campaign of the year to immunize children under the age of 5 against the crippling disease. The move follows a surge in new infections in 2022. While no new cases have been reported in Pakistan so far this year, the highly infectious wild polio virus paralyzed 20 children last year. That compares to just one infection reported in 2021. National Eradication Program officials said more than 360,000 health workers would deliver polio drops to at least 44.2 million children across 156 districts during the 5-day campaign. Reporting via remote, I'm Jeff Custer. This is VOA News. This is VOA News. I'm Jeff Custer. A former commander in Russia's Wagner mercenary group who fought in Ukraine has apparently fled to Norway seeking asylum. In interviews shared with the Reuters news agency by the Gulagu.net rights group, he describes alleged killings of Russian prisoners and a dramatic Arctic escape through forests and over breaking ice with bullets flying. Reuters correspondent Matthew Luratonda reports.
A tale of alleged abuse, brutal killings of Russian deserters, and a dramatic escape through the Arctic across breaking ice and with bullets flying. And now, a rights group called Gulagu.net, which says it helped the man flee Russia, has shared his interviews with Reuters.
On July 6, 2022, I signed a contract with this company and departed for Ukraine. I was assigned to the 7th Assault Squadron, 4th Platoon, where I was made commander of the 1st Squad. There, in August, they started bringing prisoners from various prisons in the Russian Federation to serve in the military. Overall, their attitude changed when the prisoners arrived. They no longer counted us as human beings.
Reuters cannot verify Medvedev's story, and he hasn't disclosed where exactly in Ukraine he fought.
That's Reuters' Matthew Luratonda reporting. U.S. President Joe Biden welcomed Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte to the White House Tuesday for bilateral talks. As the two leaders sat for a photo opportunity in the Oval Office, Biden credited the Netherlands for its support for Ukraine.
You've been very, very stalwart, and we look to you as well to make sure we have a coherent European response, all Europe response to Ukraine. And Russia is just continuing to act in ways that are almost unbelievable. The brutality with which they're acting.
The Biden administration looks to persuade the Netherlands to further limit China's access to semiconductors. This is VOA News. Failed Republican New Mexico state legislative candidate Solomon Pena, who authorities say was angry over his defeat and made baseless claims about that last November's election was rigged against him, was arrested Monday in connection with a series of drive-by shootings targeting the homes of Democratic lawmakers in New Mexico's largest city, Albuquerque. Albuquerque police described the 39-year-old Pena as the mastermind of what they say appears to be a politically motivated conspiracy leading to shootings at the homes of 4 New Mexico state officials in December and early January. Speaking to reporters Tuesday, Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller said the conspiracy represented a threat to democracy.
After the election in November, Solomon Pena reached out and contracted someone for an amount of cash money to commit at least 2 of these shootings. The addresses of these shootings were communicated over phone. Within hours in one case, the shooting took place.
No one was injured in the shootings, but in one case, 3 bullets passed through the bedroom of a state senator's 10-year-old daughter. Pena ran unsuccessfully in November against incumbent state representative Miguel Garcia. The fastest version of the U.S. sports car, the Chevrolet Corvette, will come out next year. Associated Press correspondent Rita Follet reports.
And if going from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.5 seconds doesn't jerk your head back, the price of this vehicle will. $104,000. The 2024 Chevy Corvette E-Ray is not powered just by a V8. It's a gas-electric hybrid. The front wheels run on an electric motor. The traditional 6.2-liter V8 powers the back. Total, 655 horsepower. It comes with all-season tires so you can drive it year-round. And we're told the all-wheel drive system is configured so it is confident in a few inches of snow, even with its low ground clearance. An all-electric version of the Corvette will come out at some point. No date set yet for that. I'm Rita Foley.
Official statistics show that China's population shrank for the first time in decades last year as its birth rate plunged. That adds to pressure on leaders to keep the economy growing despite an aging workforce and at a time of rising tension with the U.S. Despite the official numbers, some experts believe China's population has been in decline for a few years. That's a dramatic turn in a country that once sought to control such growth through a one-child policy. Many wealthy countries are struggling with how to respond to aging populations. From Washington, I'm Jeff Custer. This is VOA News.
This is VOA News. I'm Marissa Melton. Ukraine's interior minister has died in a helicopter crash near the capital that killed more than a dozen people, including children. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
Firefighters at the crash site comb through the debris, which includes a badly damaged kindergarten, clearing chunks of charred, mangled wreckage lying against an apartment building and in the playground. Earlier, 4 bodies on the ground were covered by reflective sheets. Kyrylo Tymoshenko, deputy head of the office of the President of Ukraine, tells reporters, "We're counting the children. Everyone understands the situation that has happened. Emotions are running high." Kiev Regional Governor Alexei Kuleba says emergency services are still identifying remains recovered and that the death toll could rise. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva on Wednesday dismissed 13 more military officers who were assigned to the National Security Advisor's office, which is responsible for the president's security. The decision follows the removal of 40 military officers on Tuesday from the Alvorada presidential residence, as Lula expressed his distrust in the military for failing to act against supporters of former President Jair Bolsonaro, who stormed government buildings on January 8th. Israel's Supreme Court has ruled that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu must fire a key ally from the country's new cabinet. The High Court ruled that Aryeh Deri, the influential head of an ultra-Orthodox party and a longtime Netanyahu ally, cannot serve as a minister after he was convicted last year for tax offenses. From Washington, you're listening to VOA News. A joint study by the UN and Somalia's health ministry says people in Somalia are highly traumatized due to political instability, prolonged violence, and humanitarian crises. The study found that mental disorder is prevalent across the country. It said the cases are about 77% higher than a previous study by the World Health Organization. That study had suggested nearly 40% of the population of Somalia had a mental or psychological disorder. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Wednesday called on business leaders gathered at the World Economic Forum in Davos to follow the principles outlined by an expert group to make credible, accountable net zero pledges. The United Nations and the International Organization for Standardization launched the guidelines in November to help organizations come up with solid plans. The green energy transition of world powers has been one of the central themes at the forum in Davos. Here's Secretary General Guterres.
We need cooperation, yet we face fragmentation. And I'm not here to sugarcoat the scale of that challenge or the sorry state of our world. We can't confront problems unless we look them squarely in the eye. And we are looking into the eye of a Category 5 hurricane.
Microsoft is cutting 10,000 jobs. AP correspondent Rita Foley.
Some of the layoffs are immediate. Microsoft says the economy and customer priorities are changing. CEO Satya Nadella emailed employees using the R word, recession, saying organizations in every industry around the world are being cautious. Some parts of the world are in a recession, he wrote, and other parts are anticipating one. Amazon's cutting 18,000 jobs. Facebook parent Meta laying off 11,000 workers. Twitter slashed its workforce, too. Companies that boomed during the pandemic now right-sizing, say some executives. I'm Rita Foley.
Alvin Chow, who organized the biggest gambling facilitators in Macau, has been convicted on charges of illegal gambling and other charges. The former head of Sun City Group was sentenced to 18 years in prison at a Wednesday hearing. The presiding judge also found Chow guilty of fraud and running a criminal cross-border gambling syndicate, but acquitted him of money laundering. Human Rights Watch says an elite Bangladesh police unit is engaged in the rampant extortion, harassment, and wrongful arrests of the Rohingya refugees that it has been tasked with protecting. The armed police battalion operates in camps housing nearly 1 million members of the stateless minority, most of whom fled neighboring Myanmar after a military crackdown. From Washington, I'm Marissa Melton, VOA News.